listener discretion is advised. This episode contains discussion of sensitive topics that may be distressing for some audiences. Please take care while listening, and if these topics are triggering for you, we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Welcome to T
and E with the T.
I'm your host, Teresa.
I'm your co-host, Edwin.
And today we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. So I wanted to paint you a picture. There's this man. Mm-hmm. He is getting interrogated. And the first thing that they ask him is, do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And then the man says, yes, ma'am. And he's smiling while he says, yes, ma'am.
Just like me.
That's like, That's something that I didn't want to add because you'll see why. And then they ask him, please state your full name. I'm Jeffrey Edward Epstein. I have vacation homes in New Mexico, Palm Beach, New York, and Paris. Hey guys, so I'm editing the video and I realized that we were saying solicited wrong and soliciting wrong. So I apologize for that. So if I keep saying that, I can't correct it now. So if I keep saying that, I'm sorry, but let's continue on with the video. Have you ever been convicted for a crime?
Yes.
What was the crime of which you were convicted?
Two counts. One, soliciting prostitution and procuring a minor for prostitution.
Did you, in fact, commit those acts?
I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
How many times have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution?
Same answer.
How many times have you solicited a minor for prostitution in the state of Florida?
Florida. Same answer.
Have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution in the Virgin Islands?
Same answer.
That is, you are invoking your Fifth Amendment.
Yes, right.
Have you ever solicited for a prostitution in New York?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in New Mexico?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in Paris?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution anywhere at any time?
Again, I'm going to assert my right.
So that's Jeffrey Epstein. He just seemed like he didn't want to answer anything and wanted to just invoke his right, like the Fifth Amendment, which I guess is the ability of not
staying
answering.
Silent.
Yeah.
You know that means basically, it's like saying yes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So like, you're making yourself look a little bit suspicious.
Was he with like jury?
So no, so the whole situation is that he was in a room. They had a whole like green screen behind him, or a whole like what is it called? Like a wallpaper behind him. And and then they had cameras. They only had a camera on him, and his people were like sitting on one side, and his attorneys were sitting on one side, and then the other attorneys that were going against him were on the other side. We'll get into everything. So I'm going to talk about basically Jeffrey Epstein and where he started and how he got to this famous person. He literally became like this famous person around the world. He was rich. He had all the money that anybody could ask for. He had private jets. He had a whole bunch of houses, like I said, in New York, New Mexico, Paris. Like, he had all these vacation homes. And the crazy thing is that he got so many opportunities and places that you need a, what is it called? You need to go to school for it. You need to have a degree to be working in these places, but he got it. Like, he knew how to manipulate people into giving him what he wanted. And it was like the most smartest way ever. He seemed very genuine. He seemed very like a good person, quote unquote, to people, that they would just give him everything, like without even asking. Like, he was just like this really big wealthy man that everybody looked up to. But at the very end, he was a horrible person because he was over here having minors,
kids.
Yes. Having minors come into his vacation homes specifically one specific one, and will sex traffic them.
So it wasn't him doing it. It was like
No,
he
it
was
was
giving
him.
it to people. Like it was like
So-
he wasn't abusing them. He was letting other people abuse him.
No. So he would have these minors come into his home thinking that they're going to get a job.
The minors.
Yes. So thinking that he's going to help them succeed in life. And the only way that you're going to help them, or the only way that he's going to help them succeed, is if they do what he wants them to do. Which, what he does, as soon as you get there, has them come into this massage room. He's laying on his back, and they have to give him a massage. So while this massage is being done, he turns around and he's fully naked. And he tells them, get on top. That's what he would do. And then, after everything is done, after his pleasure is done, he gives them and slides them a $200 bill or $200 and tells them, okay, you can come next week.
Lets
You're
them go.
hired. And, or if they don't want to do that, say they don't want to do the acts, he would ask them to bring more girls in, to recruit more girls. They're their age, basically, because they're in high school, middle school. And be like, hey, if your friends wants money, tell them they can come by, and all they have to do is give them a massage.
Reject it?
Most of the time. Not all the time. There was even girls that were doing those acts, that were recruiting minors,
Both.
their friends.
Doing both.
And bringing them over.
Yeah, so it was just a mixture of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them, he would just let them go if they refused.
Yes and no. We'll talk about it. There's a few girls that were let go, or they ended up just not doing it anymore.
Not being a victim of it. Oh, wait.
But we'll talk about it because there's a lot of survivors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of victims. And then we'll also talk about the situation with one that she got it the worst. But yeah, that's the beginning of his story, and then we'll get into it. A lot of people knew Jeffrey Epstein because he would associate himself with Donald Trump, with Michael Jackson, with Bill Clinton, with all these famous people, right? There's even this famous picture of Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton in a room. They're just looking at the camera and they're
Can
smiling.
I see a picture of Jeffrey Epstein before we continue?
Yeah, that's Jeffrey Epstein.
He looks familiar.
He was a really famous guy. Look. But yeah, that's Jeffrey Epstein. But he would associate himself with these people and then also have beautiful young women around him everywhere he went. So everybody, he caught everyone's eye because it's who is this wealthy man that's hanging out with all these famous people, all these big wealthy people? What does he do? A lot of people didn't even know what he did. How is he so wealthy? What's his job? So that was a lot of the questions that people had when they would see Jeffrey Epstein with these famous people. Jeffrey Epstein, he was born in January 20th of 1953 in Coney Island, New York. And he attended college for 2 years but dropped out. So he didn't really do too much. He went to school for, what was it? Oh, I think it was physics. Something like that. But he attended school, dropped out after 2 years, and he began his career as a teacher. Tell me how you can get a job as a teacher without an education, without a degree.
What year was this?
This was around I believe, the 80s when he became a teacher, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. So he became a teacher, and he did not have a degree at all.
In education.
Yeah. He was 21 years old when he became a teacher.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
What the heck?
Mm-hmm.
He was a student himself.
Well, he didn't go to school.
He didn't go to school at all?
I mean, he went to school, but he graduated. So
Oh,
he didn't.
okay.
I mean, he didn't graduate. I'm sorry. He dropped out after
Of
2
high
years.
school?
No, of college.
Oh, college. Okay.
Of college, he dropped out. But it is like they do say that Jeffrey was a really smart man.
Yeah.
Like he was business smart. He was very like educated in that sense. Like he knew how to manipulate people into thinking that he knew a lot. But he also lied on his resumes. So maybe back then it was a lot easier to lie on your resume than it is now.
Yeah.
So he got a job as a teacher and later on was fired around a year or two of working as a teacher for poor performance. And then after that, he got a job at Bear Stearns, which is a bank. A bank. And he later became a limited partner of the company.
What?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's smart. He is not dumb. He knew how to get to people's brains. But he was later fired a few years later for breaking rules, allegedly.
When he was a partner?
Mm-hmm.
And he was fired?
Allegedly. Okay, these are the things that I found. I'm not 100% sure if this is the truth, but that's what happened, right? But he got this job only because he lied on his resume. The main guy, literally the person that hired him, the boss, he found out that he lied on his resume, called Jeffrey Epstein and was like, hey, why did you lie? Like, what is going on? Like, why didn't you just tell me, like, you don't have all these education or whatever? And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, yes, I did lie. It's just because I wanted an opportunity. Like, I have all this, like, knowledge, and I know that I can do it. And I'm, basically manipulating him into thinking, like, oh, he is a good man. So the guy was convinced, and he was able to stay in the company. This was before, he left, right? Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Epstein was a very private man. A lot of people didn't know about him, like I said. Nobody really knew what he did until later on they, started researching him, and then they started finding out a few things about him and that he became a teacher and then all this stuff, right? So he was just very private with his stuff. He didn't really say anything. He didn't really tell anybody what he did. He was just a very private man. Like nobody knew about him. Nobody knew things about him. Basically, like a Gatsby-like type of life.
Character. Yeah.
So, on October 20th of 2005, there was a search warrant issued, and he was already being investigated. For about 7 months, things were coming out already. So there was this magazine, this writer that was going to write about Jeffrey Epstein, and she was going to put this on a magazine. She started investigating, about him, who he was, because he's this wealthy man. And then all of a sudden, young women started being brought up. Like how they had a different interaction with Jeffrey Epstein than anybody else. One of them was an artist. She would draw, she would paint, so she would want to sell her artwork. So one day she went to go and she had this art show, and all of her art, her designs were on the wall and were going to be sold. Mm-hmm. All her designs were already sold, and she was about to go home with $12,000 until basically the owner of the art show, she told her, hey, this painting is wanted by somebody, and you can't sell that one. Like that painting is going to be sold to that person, and you're going to give them a discount. And so the girl's like, what? Who am I going to sell it to? Like, it's already sold. And then she was like, well, sorry, it's not. Like, you're going to sell it to him. And then Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, which is his girlfriend at the time. And instead of going home with $12,000, she goes home with $6,000. Mm-hmm. So you can obviously see how his powerful, wealthy, personality or whatever it is he knows how to manipulate people and getting what he wants. And if he wants a painting, he's gonna get a painting. If he wants a minor to do whatever it is that he wants to do, he's gonna get it, you know. Or if he wants to become a teacher, he's gonna become a teacher. Like, he is really good with his words, and a lot of people respect him because he's very wealthy and a very famous man, and he came from nowhere.
You know what's crazy? There's this guy that says the most powerful weapon a human can have isn't weapon, isn't strength, isn't money, is their words.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah,
because your words are very powerful. Very powerful. If
beautiful.
You...
Mira la cuchilla.
I remember.
I'm gonna cut that out.
So yeah, so that's a little bit of example. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the interactions between, you know, him and the minors.
Yeah.
Well, the victims, I'm sorry. When they started investigating him, this was in 2005, 7 months in the investigation, they got a search warrant to search his home. He wasn't there. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't there because he seemed to already get caught, like catch on the fact that they were already investigating him.
Mm-hmm.
So he ended up fleeing out of that vacation home and like leaving, going somewhere else, right? So once they get there, they got the search warrant, right? And they go inside. There was pictures on the walls that caught their eye, and it was of naked young kids. They were nude. There were nude pictures everywhere of just women, of young women, and it felt odd. Like, what the heck? Why do you have that? And most of the time, it was just like paintings or drawings. So it was really weird. That's what caught their eye. And then he had a steam room and a massage room already prepared, you know, already set up and everything. And he also had monitors, without computers. So it seemed like like I said, he already caught on the fact that they were investigating him. So he took all his, so he took all the computers and just left the monitors, so the screens. He took all the computers, there was no computers there, and then just left the monitors. So it seemed like he was probably hiding something, because why are you going to take that? Why would you take a whole computer? Because back then it was like, you know, computer. It's a whole box. And it just seemed fishy, you know? So that was odd to them. It seemed like the whole house was all cleaned up. There was literally nothing there. They couldn't really take anything or like have anything of like to basically arrest him, because there was nothing there to really like show besides the pictures on the walls, you know, but they're drawings. It's not like he took pictures of them. They're drawings or paintings. So you can't really like be like, oh, I'm going to arrest you for these paintings. It's like, it's just a painting. But it's just weird because they're young women on the paintings.
Those are red flags.
And there were also like cameras in every room. There was cameras in the corners of every room. Why would you have cameras in rooms? Especially
it's
a massage room?
Diddy vibes.
Yes. Seems a little bit weird, but like I said, they were already investigating him, so they already had something on him, but they didn't have anything like to be like, okay, they didn't have a lot of evidence, like, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for their investigation, the reason why it all started, was because, like I said, this journalist, her name was Vicky Ward. She was writing a story of Epstein, and this is for like a magazine. It was for Variety Fair in 2003. So this was early 2000s, and these two girls came out to speak about their encounter with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, these two girls were named Maria Farmer and Annie Farmer. So there was a lot of red flags that came out when this journalist, Vicky Ward, started investigating him, or at least trying to write a story about him. It wasn't going to be anything about bad about him. It was just going to be a story of how wealthy he is and how famous he is, basically. It was just going to be about him. And then these two girls came out. So like I already told you the first story of Maria. So Maria is the one that was an artist. She was the one that was selling her art in that art show. And Jeffrey Epstein ended up buying her art. Now, when this happened, I didn't tell you the encounter between Jeffrey and Maria. But Jeffrey and Maria, when Jeffrey bought her artwork, obviously Maria was like a little bit devastated because she's like, I was about to sell it for so much more, and then now I'm selling it for a lower price, like for her. Yeah. So he knew that. He knew that he was, one, it was already sold, and then two, it was on discounted price. So he knew that, and so when he what he said to Maria was, "Don't worry, I will make it worth your while." That was their encounter between Maria and Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. Now, after this encounter, after all this happened, what he said was like, "I'll make it worth your while," came true because he calls her up a few months later and he's offering her a job in Ohio. And she had to stay in this big mansion, so he flew her out to Ohio and he had her stay in this mansion by herself. And one night, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell ended up coming over, visiting her, basically introducing themselves to her and getting to know each other and all this stuff. That night, Ghislaine Maxwell ended up going up to Maria and was like, "Hey, Jeffrey Epstein wants a massage." And Maria was like a little bit like
weirded out.
Yeah, she was just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to give him a massage, but I didn't want to say no because it's like he's giving me this opportunity. Mm-hmm. What if I say no and then he like takes it away? So she goes to the room where he's laying down on the bed. He wanted a massage on his feet. So she goes and she starts massaging his feet, and he's laying down on the bed, and he's like pats on the bed next to him. And he's like, "Come up here." And she's all scared and stuff. So she goes. Ghislaine Maxwell is on the other side of her, and this is Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, they say like, she was here in the middle, and they both start groping her chest and massaging her chest, her breasts, and she feels uncomfortable. So it's like this weird moment for Maria. It's an uncomfortable feeling. Obviously, you don't want to be touched. She says that she doesn't remember how she got out of that situation, but she just remembers getting up and just jumping off the bed and like running into her room and locking herself in her room until they left the next morning. And then that was that. The next day he calls her and basically like stating, "Oh, he had a good time last night." And then she's like, "Well, I didn't." And then he basically said, "Well, you can't tell anybody about this." So that was their encounter with Jeffrey. And now her sister, like I said, her sister was also involved with Jeffrey. And she had a similar story as Maria. So Annie was 16 years old. She was in junior high, and she had she had Maria. Basically, Maria had told Jeffrey Epstein before all of this happened, before the encounter that happened with Jeffrey. Maria told Annie, her sister, that there was this really big opportunity for her, and that Jeffrey Epstein can help her, with her career. And so she agreed to it, and he basically said that he would help her build her resume. And so she had to go on a trip to Thailand and Vietnam in July to be able to,
Her sister.
Yes, Annie. So this is Annie's story, right? So she got an opportunity to go to Thailand and Vietnam in July, in the summer, to do like the summer, basically like a summer job, right? And before she even goes to this Thailand, Vietnam trip, and he was going to pay it all. Everything was going to be paid off by him. Before she even goes, Jeffrey invited Annie to his townhome. I believe it was in New Mexico. He invited her to go over to his New Mexico vacation home, and Annie was gonna meet Jeffrey and Ghislaine Maxwell there. So she gets there. He's showing off his house, how beautiful it is. It was literally like the beautiful house, so beautiful, huge. So it was like if he was like showing off his money. Like he was showing off, look everything that you can have, or everything that you see, like I can give to you, basically. Like if you stick with me, right? And that happened, right? She gets there, he shows her the house and everything. Now, her mom, because she was 16 years old, obviously, her mom had to know about this trip.
It's kind of
her
weird,
mom,
no?
What?
That she was able to go by herself.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to tell you. So her mom was actually told by Jeffrey that it was going to be like this student meetup. So there was going to be a lot more students there. She wasn't going to be the only one by herself. So obviously, like, he painted it like a pretty picture. Like, don't worry, you guys are in good hands. We're gonna have all this. Like, all the students are gonna be there. We're gonna have them meet up, because after that, they have to get along when they go into the trip. Because supposedly, it was supposed to be multiple students that were going onto this trip, not just her. But as soon as she gets to the house, she notices that there's no more students. There's nobody there but her and Ghislaine and Jeffrey.
Who's Ghislaine?
Ghislaine Maxwell is his girlfriend.
Ghislaine was the one that sexually harassed Maria as well?
Yes.
So the husband and the wife sexually harassed?
Well, the couple, yes. Sexually harassed Maria. Mm-hmm. Ghislaine Maxwell was involved in most of these interactions. Yeah. We'll talk more about her in part 2. I didn't mention that this is going to be part 1, but I am going to get more into Ghislaine in part 2, and we're going to talk about her and her story and everything that she did with Jeffrey. She's also in jail. So,
she's still living though, right?
I believe so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she's involved in most of these. So, and you'll see how. But, like I said, she gets there, there's no other students, and she notices that. Her mom and her were painted this picture that there was going to be multiple students there meeting up, but it's just her. So, she's told by Ghislaine Maxwell that she's going to get this professional massage, that she's so lucky that she's going to get this massage, and she was asking her if she's ever gotten a massage, and obviously, Annie's like, no, I've never gotten a massage. She's like, oh my God, you're so lucky, like you're going to get a beautiful massage and this professional massage or whatever, right? And she goes, she has, Ghislaine has Annie lay on a bed. Well, first, she has her take off all her clothes. And then she has her lay on the bed. But she's laying, like, on her back. And she has a cover over. But then eventually, Ghislaine Maxwell ends exposing her breasts, pulling the blanket down. And she starts massaging her breasts. And Annie is like, I knew that Jeffrey was watching because it felt all the doors were open, and she felt like the sensation of somebody was watching. So she knew that he was watching. So all she does is just massage her chest and all this stuff, right? There was also another encounter. One morning, she got woken up by Jeffrey. He came into her room and he said he wanted to cuddle. And he goes and gets under the blanket with Annie and starts touching her inappropriately. And the way she got out of that situation is she told him that she needed to go to the bathroom. And she went into, the bathroom and stayed there. And yeah, that was the situation with Annie and Jeffrey.
Maria.
No, Annie and
Oh,
Jeffrey.
yeah.
And but she ended up going on that trip. She ended up going to the Vietnam and Thailand trip. But she never told anybody what happened between Jeffrey and Annie, and also Ghislaine Maxwell, and what they did to her. But this is just an example of basically
was going
every
on.
every encounter is like this. It's always has to do with the massage, always. So those are one of the reasons why they started investigating. Right, they started seeing this and started listening to these stories. But this wasn't the icebreaker. This wasn't the moment where they were like, oh, we need to like really get into this. This mom ended up calling the police station and telling them that their daughter or her daughter was being told that there was this man that were paying girls to give him a massage. And that they're asking girls all around the school if they want to go to give this man a massage
Who
for
said
money.
that?
So this mom ends up calling 911, and she states that her daughter, is saying that there's girls going around the school and asking them if they want to go and give this man a massage for money. That there's a man that's giving out money
To get
to
a
give a
massage.
massage. And so they ended up asking, like, who is this man? Like, what's his name? And she says, Jeffrey Epstein. And they're like, what the heck? And so they go and start investigating him. So that was like the icebreaker. That was where they were like, okay, something is fishy. Like something is going on. So that's when they started investigating, right? So many of like the stories like Maria and Annie started coming out. And police started receiving calls, like I said, with the mom. Most girls were like vulnerable girls. There were girls that had low income, big dreams, that were abused, etc. There were even girls that didn't even have families, like that were getting ripped from their families and stuff like that. So those were the girls that fell for these type of traps.
They were vulnerable.
They were very vulnerable. They're vulnerable young girls, because a lot of people be like stating, "Oh, well, like they knew what was going on." Like they start kind of not basically saying like, the girls, it's your fault, because if you obviously felt uncomfortable, why would you go back? Or why would you stay? It's like they were vulnerable girls. Who knows, what they were thinking. They probably wanted to leave, but they didn't know how to. They were just scared. They were young girls, 14, 13 years old, up to like 17 years old. Minors that don't know what they're doing. So it's like it's really hard to really state those things and say like, oh, they knew what was going on. If they felt uncomfortable, they could have left. It's not that easy. So they were recruited by other young girls or Ghislaine Maxwell. So Ghislaine was one of the ones that was going out and basically capturing, I guess, quote unquote, capturing these young women to come and get a massage by or massage Jeffrey Epstein.
Also, get a massage or a massage?
Most of the time it was giving him a massage.
Mm-hmm.
But they were also being recruited by young girls, other girls around their age. So then they get a massage by Jeffrey Epstein or massage Jeffrey, and they take off all their clothes. They're being asked to take off all their clothes. And then they're later asked to, or forced to do oral sex or intercourse.
These are probably virgins.
Most definitely. Most definitely. They're 13 years old.
That's terrible.
Most definitely virgins. Most of them, like from when I was researching, some of the girls would be like, I didn't even know what sex was.
What was Jeffrey Epstein's childhood? Do you know at all?
Like I said, there was a lot of, he was a very private person. So there wasn't a lot of things about his childhood, but I just know that he grew up very poor. He didn't grow up like wealthy. So he kind of got himself up to that. But we don't really know much about his young life. Yeah. But I think he just had this obsession with young girls. I don't think it had to do anything with his like
Childhood.
Yeah, his childhood. I think he just had an obsession with young girls. And then used his wealth and his power and money and used it to his advantage.
He gave in to his temptation.
Most definitely. Because that was literally it. That was the only reason why he wanted to be with these young girls, is to have sex with them and traumatize them. But anyways, so they would be forced to have oral sex or intercourse, and then later on, sex trafficked to his wealthy, powerful friends. Yes. So I'll talk about that in a bit.
What the heck?
But on July 2006, Epstein was charged with a single felony count of solicitation of prostitute and is later on arrested for it, but posts bond few hours later. So he was released. The arrest wasn't because he was convicted. He was arrested because usually when you have a court date, you're arrested and then you await your court date or your trial, right?
In jail.
Yes, in jail, because you're being convicted for something, right? But he was able to pay a bond, to pay like a fee, to get out of jail so that he can just be out wandering around until he gets his court date. So he can continue doing whatever he's doing until he gets his court date. Does that make sense? So that's crazy to me, but whatever. Because you're literally wanting to charge him for soliciting prostitution, and then you're over here giving him bond to be able to get out. Make that make sense? He's going to continue doing what he's doing. Whatever. The mystery is, how did he make his money? We're going to make a whole U-turn, right? The whole Victoria's Secret, right? So the reason why I want to talk about this is because he was able to pay all this off, like the bonds and all this stuff, because he's a really wealthy man, right? He's able to pay the most best attorneys because that's how it helped him get out of his first conviction of being arrested for many years. In 1986, after Bear Stearns, he got involved with this man named Steve Hoffenberg. He was the CEO of the Towers Financial Corporation, right? So this is after the Bear Stearns. So he was very wealthy.
Bear Stearns
this man
is the court. I mean the
Bear Stearns
bank.
Bank. Mm-hmm. So that Bear Stearns was in 1986, right? Steve Hoffenberg was after he was fired. So like maybe in 1988, because I know it was 2 years after, right? So in 1988, allegedly, I'm not 100% sure,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So he was involved with Steve Hoffenberg, which he's the CEO of Towers Financial Corporation. This man was a very wealthy man, and he interviewed Epstein, and he became a partner, basically a partner in crime for everything that he did. So this is where the fraud comes in the picture. So this company was involved in this scam, which basically it's a Ponzi scheme. So it's basically an investment fraud that pays existing investors with funds collected from new investors. So Steve pled guilty for this because they were caught. For 20 years, he was in prison. But he didn't turn Jeffrey in. He didn't state that Jeffrey was involved in this fraud. Because Jeffrey manipulated him and said that he was a corporative witness of the U.S. Department in the past and is still basically involved with them. Mm-hmm. So he is able to, he was like an investigator. He was going into this company because he was working with the police and he was investigating the fraud. And so if he were to turn him in, he's going to state everything that he did. And basically he can't get in trouble because he was told to do this. Does that make sense? So he manipulated him into thinking that he was involved with the police department.
What the heck?
And that he was going to
He told him that after?
He told him that whenever he got convicted for this crime, for the fraud. And he said that this is what I'm doing. So he couldn't turn him in. He was manipulated into thinking that by Jeffrey Epstein. Mm-hmm. Crazy, huh? Jeffrey Epstein also manipulated Leslie Wexner. No. Leslie Wexner gave him control over businesses, which Leslie owned Victoria's Secret. Mm-hmm. He also owned Abercrombie and another company named The Limited. Leslie was the type of man that he was like, my business is my... Yeah. Leslie was the type of man that is like, my business are my business. Like, he was very like protective, but he was manipulated by Jeffrey Epstein to allow him to give him a part of the businesses to work with him. So it was really weird. And a lot of people thought, and there was a rumor going around that Epstein was in a sexual relationship with Leslie, which is how he was able to control his emotions, allegedly. He did tell someone, I don't remember who it was, but he did tell someone that he was able to control Leslie's emotions, that he's able to basically make him do whatever he wants. And so there was a rumor that he was sexually involved with him. And they asked him this in his interrogation too. They asked him, were you in a sexual relationship with Leslie Wexner? And he obviously says no. So
it sounds like he has like you know, like the freaking,
like a wand or something,
like something.
Oh, like the, you know what I mean? The hypnotization,
yeah.
The hypnotized thing.
He's over here making people give him these companies.
I'm telling you, he knew how to manipulate people. He was smart, not in a good way. Like, he was smart, and having people do whatever he wanted. How? I don't know.
What the heck? That's kind of weird, though.
Weird.
It's like if he has like magic.
He had a talent, and he used it in the wrong way. Yeah.
What kind of words do you have to say to convince somebody to give you?
Dude, I don't know, but he like.
Did you call me dude?
Sorry. Yeah, it's because I'm surprised. I'm like so surprised at the fact that he was able to manipulate all these people and get to the top without doing nothing. He did nothing. I'm over here breaking my back. He's over there just talking to people, and I'm like, maybe I just need to talk more.
You do.
I know, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know what he says. I don't know how he talks to these men. Anybody, everybody. He was able to become a teacher without an education. Who does that? How? Leslie Wexner, he ended up cutting ties with Epstein in 2007 because he stole over $46 million, but didn't press charges. When he was involved with Leslie Wexner, that's when he started interacting with young girls. Why? Because he was involved with Victoria's Secret. So, allegedly, he would go out and recruit these girls to model for Victoria's Secret, but then convince them to go, and then he would sexually assault them. So it'd be things like that. So that's
where the whole modeling stuff came from.
So he got that opportunity, like while working with Leslie, to be around young girls. So that's how it happened. And he often stated that he was a talent scout for Victoria's Secret and would convince them to come with him. So that was like the beginning of what we heard, or what we've, like the research that people have done, that was the beginning of his time of like getting around the young girls. There was a lot of evidence of transporting young girls to an island in Florida was coming up. So there's this document that is out to the public, or for the public. Basically, it's flight logs, the times that they would log going to the island. So like he had this island in Florida, and this was like the very known island where he would go and take these girls there and assault them. And then some girls even lived there. So that was like the island. And more people were allegedly involved, and more people were allegedly going to this island, right? So in these logs, they also state how many people were in the private jet. So it would say like Epstein, one girl and one guy, or Epstein and two girls, Epstein and one girl, or one girl by herself. Like it would say like that, right? And so it shows all the times that you go to this island and the days and the times, and it would be a consistent thing. So it obviously caught the investigators' eye, because it's like, why are you going to this island so much, and why are you bringing so many young girls? Because it would say sometimes young girl. Like, why is there girls going into this island? And who are these girls? Right? So, like I said, people were involved, allegedly. The contact of Jeffrey Epstein also came out. The documents also came out. And there's a lot of contacts in there or a lot of names in there that are very recognizable. I'm not saying, or nobody's saying that these people are involved, but he has their contact information, right? So, like I said, there's Donald Trump, there's Michael Jackson, Bill Clinton, all these famous people in his contacts. And so there's also a lot of pictures with Epstein with these famous people. Like I said, Bill Clinton is one of them. This is one of the famous pictures out there. In 2008, he was sentenced for 8 months. So he's already convicted for the soliciting prostitution, right? And he's he's sentenced for 18 months, but only serves 13 months in prison.
No way.
Yeah. Only serves 13 months in prison, but he could have served 15 months, but it was brought down.
Because of the words.
And so, during the 13 months that he was in prison, he was allowed 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for work release. So he was allowed out. Tell me why you're literally sentencing a man for soliciting prostitution, but you're going to let him out 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for a work release? His work is doing the things that he's doing with these minors. That's his work.
Allegedly.
No, he was convicted for that. He was convicted for sex trafficking these women. Yeah. So, I don't understand the whole, like, why? Because he's this famous man, he can get whatever he wants. He's literally like smiling. There's one like video where he's like being walked out with his attorney, or being walked out, I think by his attorney or by his security guard. Not sure, but it was one of those. Then he's walked out, he's all smiling or whatever, because he's on his work release. Whatever. And he was also given food that was not given to the other
Inmates.
And
he had special treatment.
A lot, yeah. And so the way he was able to get this 13 months in prison was because his lawyers negotiated a non-prosecution agreement. So it's basically a deal with the government to avoid court. So he didn't go to court when he was sentenced these 13 or 18 months. He didn't go to court. As soon as they got there, literally like a few minutes later, they get up and they leave. And it's like a lot of people were confused. The other attorneys that were, fighting against him, they were confused because they were like, what the heck? Why is he leaving? Then later on was told, oh, he's only sentenced for 18 months.
I don't understand.
What?
Are words that potent?
No, it wasn't words. It's wealth and fame.
No, but words got him to that level. And
yes.
I'm sure, like, you have to, it can't just be wealth. It can't just be wealth.
Well, I mean, he's famous and he's this known person. So, and like I said, he's wealthy. He can pay himself out of these situations. He can just be like, hey, look, here's $1 million and I won't say nothing. And then he'll run away. Literally. And he's famous. So be like, I'll talk real good about you. And then just leave. Because everybody's going to listen to him. It's so sad because people like that have that type of power, that have that type of fame, that have that type of influence on people, can get away with such horrible crime and move on with their lives. Like what happened with the Diddy situation. He could have been sentenced for life, but he didn't. Why? Because he had the most famous attorneys, the most good attorneys, and was wealthy, famous, and all this stuff. But he only got a few years in prison.
What I'm starting to realize is, like, money really messes things up.
Money, fame, a lot of things.
I wonder how, like, societies did it without money. Like the Indians, the Cherokee Indians.
I don't know.
I think we need to go back to something. Well, another topic, off topic.
Yeah. Okay, but let me continue. So this agreement also included a federal immunity of prostitution charges and protect any co-conspirators. So this means basically a promise from the government that if you tell them everything about the crime that you did, they won't punish you for being involved and protect anyone else involved.
And that's a law?
No, that was an agreement that they had between the government and Jeffrey Epstein and his team. That was an agreement that they did. This was an agreement between, the government and Epstein and his lawyers. So they negotiated a non-prosecution agreement, and this agreement also included a federal immunity of prostitution charges, and protects any co-conspirators, which is, like I said, anybody involved, and also he is now basically let go for any charges or anything like that, because he admitted everything or whatever the case may be. But this was done behind closed doors. So anybody else that was going against Jeffrey Epstein and his attorneys and also the victims, they didn't know about this agreement until after it was done. So they were not told. Yeah, they were not told that this agreement was being done until later on when they got to the court. Then they got up and left. And then they were told that he was given this 18 months, and then there was an agreement done.
A settlement.
Yeah, a settlement. Yeah, it was so sad. But he got away with sex trafficking, basically a wealthy man. And while a lot of people knew what he was doing and even witnessed it. So it's like you have a lot of people coming out and telling you that this is what's going on. But because they don't have a lot of evidence either, they can't really, at that time, they didn't have a lot of evidence. So they couldn't really say anything, and this agreement could have been done because of that reason too. So, anyways, like I said, there was a lot of people that witnessed it. So in the Virgin Islands was one of the favorite places to go, or the
For
famous, places to go to. And
they're beautiful.
what?
The Virgin Islands.
The Virgin Islands?
St. Thomas.
Really?
Yeah, all that stuff.
I've never seen it. Well, researching,
Awesome.
I saw the island, and it's huge, and he has a good portion. But anyways, and I'll show you pictures of it. But Jeffrey Epstein would call this Virgin Island, which is, first of all, the name Virgin Island is crazy with everything that's going on that island. But whatever. He would call it Little St. Jeff's. That's how he would name it. But everyone else called it the Orgy Island. Because that's what would happen in those islands. In that island. So, Steve Scully, he was a former employee from 1999 to 2006. He worked on maintenance for telecommunication and data equipment. So, there was one time that he saw Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein hanging out and just communicating about business or whatever, but it was just them two in the room, and he was like, wow, it's Bill Clinton. Like, that's crazy. Like, he's with Bill Clinton. Like, that's a president, right? So that was one thing, but he doesn't know, and he has never seen Bill Clinton be involved in anything. That's from what he states, right? And he was an employee, so he would be there a lot of the most days, right? But anyways, he also went to the Grotto Beach, which is a little beach there on the island, and he had seen a nude man and 3 young girls topless. So that was one encounter that he did see, and to him, he saw that, and he immediately ran out. So he didn't know what was going on there.
In a beach?
Right there on the island. It was Grotto Beach. It was just a man and 3 topless young girls. Another encounter that he saw, his name is Prince Andrew. He also saw him at a pool with a young girl, topless, grabbing and groping her and grinding against
Who, the
each
prince?
other.
Prince was doing that? Eee.
Well, both of them. The girl and, she was topless, and they were at the pool, and he was like grabbing her and grinding up against her and all this stuff. So that was what he stated that he saw that
This
encounter.
is willingly?
I don't know. He didn't really state how like the girl's reaction was, but it seemed like this was like an ongoing thing that everyone does on this island. Like that was like he saw a lot of encounters like this. right? He eventually ended up quitting because one day this other employee asked him, like, why are you here? And he was like, well, for the money. And he was like, but would you let your daughter come in this island? And he's like, no, I wouldn't even let her go near Jeffrey Epstein, not even like 5 feet away or 30 feet away. So he quit the next day. So that was like a little bit of like, I guess evidence of like what was going on, like because people were witnessing these things. So while in jail, he was released on July 21st, 2009. He was given 12 months of house arrest in his Palm Beach home. But he violated his probation on a daily basis, was caught by this man that was investigating him, and he caught him at this hotel, and who knows what he was doing at this hotel, but he caught him at the hotel walking out, and he was like, hey, say hi, and he takes a picture, and he's there. Mm-hmm. So he was caught violating his probation on a daily basis, but was never punished for it. They would state it, oh, he's out here and about. They were like, well, I mean, what do you want us to do? He's a celebrity. That was their response. So when they would, say that. I mean, when they would tell him. So all this went down for a few more years after he got out of jail. And on July 2019, Jeffrey was arrested once again, but this time faced up to 45 years in prison if convicted. And on August 2019, while in jail, he was found dead and was ruled as a suicide, which a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and they believe that he was killed because of a surveillance camera that was right outside of his door. There's 2 minutes of that footage missing. And when they were asked about this, I just saw this recently, it was in a Donald Trump's kind of, I guess, what do they call it when they ask him questions and he answers? Those moments where he like has people like ask questions and he answers all the questions that all the journalists have. But anyways, he was in that type of, or I don't know, but he was in that type of like scenery, and they ask him like, hey, why are those 2 minutes missing from the Jeffrey Epstein footage, surveillance footage of outside of his what is it called, jail cell? And then Donald Trump is like, we're still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Because if you don't know, a lot of things are coming out right now about Donald Trump and being involved with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. All of it is alleged because we can't really state if it's true or, yeah, because a lot of people are saying that he was involved with Jeffrey Epstein, like with all the pictures that came out with Donald Trump and his wife and Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, with that famous picture that they have. And then also the moments of this video of him communicating with Jeffrey Epstein. There's just a lot of interactions and a lot of moments that we captured, or people have captured, that to people, it would only make sense that he would be involved. And then all the situation or the things that he would say about Jeffrey Epstein back in the days is just fishy. There's a lot of comments that Donald Trump states back when he used to be involved with Jeffrey Epstein, or I'm sorry, let me not say involved, but like be friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He made this comment one time. He was asked about Jeffrey and how he liked him, or how, like, what do you think about Jeffrey Epstein, or something like that. And he stated something along the lines like, oh, he's a really cool guy. He's really good. He's really cool or whatever. He's just like me. We both like young girls. Along those lines. but he does see young girls. Yeah. So there's something like that that comes out, and they hear that and they're like, what the heck? That is weird. And then later on, after, he's convicted and he's like charged for all these things, and then he dies, Jeffrey Epstein dies. Now Donald Trump is asked again, what did you think about Jeffrey Epstein? Like, what kind of guy was he? And then he was like, oh, he was a sick man. He like says all of these bad things about him. But before, when you were friends with him, you were saying like, oh, he's cool. And now that he's convicted for all these charges, you're like, oh, he's a bad person. What? Like, your mind changed real quick. But anyways, this is all alleged. His involvement with anything, we're not 100% sure, but a lot of people are speculating that Donald Trump was involved with these sex trafficking things, but we don't know because there's no evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's also these files that they still have from Jeffrey Epstein about basically, it's like allegedly a list of all the people that were involved in these crimes or in this sex trafficking situation or events. And allegedly, Donald Trump and his team are holding those files and keeping them and not letting them out to the public. So people keep asking Donald Trump, why are these files not being released? And he always has some excuse to say. So that's something that a lot of people have been kind of talking about. There's also this other interaction in an interview of basically they're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein situation, and they ask him, and this was literally recent. They ask him, so why did you guys why did you guys fall apart, you and Jeffrey Epstein? They asked this to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was like, well, he was stealing my employees. He was stealing people from me.
Other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here.
And then they asked him about this one girl. So this girl, her name is Virginia Roberts. She was also involved in all of basically involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And she was the main one. She was the one that was traumatized the most. But they asked him about her. They asked about Virginia. And they're like, was Virginia one of the ones that he stole from you? And Donald Trump was like, yes, it sounds about right. The name sounds familiar. I'm pretty sure that he stole her from me. What? Virginia Roberts was sexually assaulted multiple times by Jeffrey Epstein, and she came out and stated that Jeffrey would pass her around to his wealthy friends. So I don't know what type of involvement there was there, but she worked at this massage place allegedly with Donald Trump. Like he was one of Donald Trump's employees, and was later allegedly stole by Jeffrey Epstein, from what Donald Trump says. But she was involved with a lot of sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of Donald Trump, but like I said, he was asked that question about Jeffrey Epstein. He's like, we're going to ask this question again. And then someone in his team answers the question, and she goes, well, those two minutes that are missing from that clip outside of his jail cell are because the video restarts from there. So every video or every footage that you see from any like surveillance camera, they're always going to be a 2 minutes missing from it.
And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night.
That sounds like,
Because that's where it restarts.
that sounds like a whole lot of not real.
I don't know. But that's how they answered to that question, right? So it was a little bit odd, but there is a lot of involvement of Donald Trump. He's allegedly involved in all of this mess, right? So I brought up Virginia Roberts. Virginia Roberts were basically one of the main girls that was sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, and she was involved with him for many years. Probably, I think it was 5 years. A good amount of years, right? She was involved with him, or basically sex trafficked by him, for a few years, and she stayed there, and she basically, they would travel, her and Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, they would go travel, they would do everything together. That was like his favorite person. So there's this picture that came out, her and Prince Andrew, and Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. And Prince Andrew has her around the waist, like he has his hand around her waist. So it seems like, there's some sort of like weird kind of, I don't know, like closeness between them two, that it just feels odd. But that's like another famous picture out there, with Virginia, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Prince Andrew. But anyways, it kind of shows like a little bit more of an evidence of like his involvement in it, Prince Andrew. But yes, so Virginia Roberts was one of the girls that was sex trafficked. And this year, on April 25th, she was found dead. And she had committed suicide. Mm-hmm.
This year?
This year, April 25th. Yeah. She was found dead, and it was ruled by a suicide. And yeah, and she was the one that was like the most traumatized. I mean, all of them were all traumatized, but she was involved for many years, and it was very hard on her. And she was sex trafficked to a lot of men, a lot of wealthy men. She never stated who, but there's a lot of things that came out, and that shows all the men that possibly she was sex trafficked to. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of weird things about her, because she was, before she committed suicide, as it was ruled, right? She was posting these pictures on Instagram. One was she had a bunch of bruises all over her face and her body. And she was laying on a bed. And supposedly it was an accident that she got into. But this man that she ended up marrying, the way she ended up getting out of the situation with Jeffrey Epstein, at age 18, I believe, she ended up marrying this man, just knowing him literally for a week. And then they ended up getting married. And that was her husband up until, she passed away. But it just felt odd and weird. And a lot of people think that he probably abused her. And a lot of people think that he was involved in this whole situation, and that he was like basically paid by Jeffrey Epstein. This is alleged. I'm just saying what people think. But that he was involved in the situation, and that Jeffrey Epstein paid him to basically have her life, basically have her be miserable. This is what people think. This is alleged. I'm not saying that this is true. I don't know. But there is a few pictures, those 2 pictures that came out that she posted. Basically, literally both of the pictures, she's bruised and on the bed. It's like, did you get in 2 accidents? Because the second one is like she got in an accident as well. So it's really weird. And then she commits suicide a few days later. So it was just really odd. But yes, so she ended up passing away in April 25th, 2025. So this year. So that's a little bit of basically the gist of Jeffrey Epstein. I'm going to get more in depth, and I'm going to basically talk about the second time that he was arrested and all the things that came out. And then the alleged celebrities that were involved. I'm also going to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. So we're going to have a long part 2 because there's a lot of information that is involved or that is has to do with Jeffrey Epstein.
What if he's still alive?
There's a lot of people too that say like, oh, he's probably still alive. They're probably hiding him somewhere, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Because I think, where can they hide him?
In his own island.
Yeah, but then people can see that. Like, I'm pretty sure that there's no way to get away with faking your own death nowadays.
I think so.
I think it's a lot harder nowadays than it was back in the days. Because there's all these technology, there's social media, there's everything, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know.
I mean, you never know, but I don't think so. I think he's dead. And I want to keep it that way. Because we don't need men like that in this world. We don't need anybody. Because Ghislaine Maxwell was a woman and she was over here helping Jeffrey Epstein. So, we don't need people like that in this world. Sorry. But we don't need that. Because all these young girls are over here traumatized. You know? Imagine that was your daughter.
No.
Yeah. It's sad. Like, those people had parents. Those kids had parents that didn't know what their daughters were getting involved into. Or getting involved in. Yeah. But that is part 1 of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Or Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah.
Like, comment, share the video, send it to whoever you think would really benefit from all this information.
Yeah, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one, in part 2.
Deuces.